Google, LinkedIn, Salesforce, many companies, they have something called the APM program, Associate Product Manager. And the idea is that they take very young new grad folks oftentimes, and they'll train them on how to be a product manager. These are very prestigious programs, harder to get into than most engineering roles. What saddens me, or maybe I shouldn't say saddens, but like one observation I've had is that when I talk to people on Taro, one of their goals is I want to go be an APM, or they might be an engineer and they want to say, oh, I want to go become a product manager working in big tech. What would you say to the computer science graduate who is gunning for an APM role at Google?
Right, because from first principles, so if you look at like what are the like activities that a product manager has to do, there's a huge chunk of the work which is kind of context gathering from like users, data, tools. It's like a very, very significant part of their work is this kind of analysis. The other part is then kind of getting buy-in for stuff. And like kind of doing alignment, all this kind of, and doing loads of meetings, whatever, synthesizing the information, deciding what to work on, and like just like, trying to connect like your that particular product strategy with the overall business strategy and all this kind of stuff. Like, what do we ship next? Like, what do I prioritize? I feel like out of those like three streams, like a lot of them are going to kind of evaporate. Like, I literally like what we're doing is like we're consolidating all these tools into one. So we're like simplifying the tooling for people, and like that is starting to speed up. So for example, like because of AI, we're going to rework like tons of our UX. You basically type a question in and get an answer back out again. Like how many daily active users I have, which users are using this particular feature, like what are the main errors that people, what are the major bugs that are affecting most users? Like we can really, like by having these tools kind of consolidated, if everything's in a data warehouse and like someone's going to build some tool that lets you ask questions across all this data really easily. So like that chunk will go and like reduce in scope. I think the alignment stuff, like I think the kind of companies that have to spend ages aligning are just not going, they're going to get disrupted by companies that take more risk underneath them. And so I'm like, well, the kind of companies that like have tons and tons of alignment meetings are going to get like the barrier to entry to building software has got lower and lower and lower. Like an engineer can do more and more and more and more. And like you're seeing like, like there are going to be companies that are like billion-dollar startups with like three people in them in the future, I think. Like it's going to kind of get, so I think like these large companies will get more open. Like there are going to be some that have good moats and stuff, but like I think there'll just be more and more disruption and like everything's getting more and more competitive.
Companies that have many PMs are the ones that have a lot of alignment meetings, and therefore it's kind of a leading indicator that these are companies that are ripe to be
I
disrupted.
think,
Is that right?
yeah, I'd be really interested to look at like the ratio of like PMs to engineers as like an indicator for what happens to like the stock price of business or something like that, or like the performance of business. Because I think so. I'm like, okay, I think these two areas will like I think these will decline. So I just think it's gonna be like less work. So I think that role will go from
Yeah.
being like you're already saying it's super competitive. I think it will get harder and harder and harder to get it. There's always going to be some level of product manager that's relevant here. And like you're going to need like good technical skills probably to, again, I think companies will get more and more demanding of who they hire. Like for example, at Postdoc, we have, I think it's roughly like 71% of our team are and product engineers. We have like one product manager. We're about 50 people at the moment. We're about to hire a second, but like the ratio is really high of like people in product engineering to product managers. And so I kind of think that product manager role will get harder and harder to get. So then the standard that we're asking for is like, it's not okay to like have just been a product manager before a bunch. It's like we really want like there's a huge amount of technical skill we're looking for with applicants. Like we really want like they have to be able to like write a load of SQL. They have to be able to empathize with engineers on kind of they need to understand code basically and have a little bit of engineering. Like they need to have some engineering experience. We're just looking really hard for like is this person truly low ego? Are they happy like not dictating to engineers what to work on and like being very context gathering and like not being that empowered? It's like they're coaching other
Yeah.
people, but they're not like deciding for them. And so I kind of think like the role will shift towards kind of companies will get more demand. And like we're seeing it in like the applicants we get when we hire. Like we put out an ad to hire like our second product manager here, like thousands of applicants. And we had like totally exceptionally strong people applying, probably the most competitive role we ever put out in terms of like I've been kind of blown away by the quality of applicants we've had for it. So we're going to be rejecting like extremely good people for that role. And so I sort of just feel like it's going to get incredibly concentrated. It will be an amazing job probably to be a product manager at one of these places. It's going to be so hard to get into. But I kind of think it's going to shrink as a percentage of like the tech workforce or something. And that's in line with companies who are, if they're trying to like cost cut or be resilient or whatever, like they're going to want more people like actually like getting the code out the door or whatever. So they're going to, I think that's the kind of role that will get shrunk over time. I think the same thing about like data engineering and data analysis as well, where I think the tooling is going to get simpler and simpler as it goes from being like the domain of like enterprise into kind of like SMBs and startups and stuff. So again, I kind of think like this full stack product role is the one that will expand and that'll be the majority of engineering jobs would be my guess, like long, like yeah, 5 years from now or something.